Don't move, Kellen said, squinting at the loose strap on her armor like it was a ticking bomb, which technically, given Zurelian war gear, it might be. Varen Shadi stood unnervingly still, not in the relaxed, I trust you kind of way. More like a reptilian statue preparing to strike the moment her shoulder pad did anything less than meet ancient combat standards. She didn't breathe. She didn't blink. Her presence radiated plasma-scorched authority and approximately zero tolerance for human nonsense. Kellen licked his lips, sweat prickling under his collar. The maintenance bay was too quiet, too sterile, and too full of people pretending not to be watching from behind data consoles and coolant crates. Someone coughed. Someone else whispered, "He's dead. That guy's so dead." Kellen tightened his grip on the torque clamp and leaned in. "All right," he murmured half to himself. "Just a quick, twist, and—" Varen twitched. He froze. She flinched. And then, Kellen blinked. "Did you just—" She exhaled a short, sharp sound, then more deliberately, like someone testing air after a century of silence. And then she said, "That tickles." The maintenance bay went absolutely still. A wrench dropped somewhere in the back with the exact acoustics of a metal confession. A crate creaked under the sudden tension of 3 officers holding their breath. Kellen, still holding the torque clamp midair, glanced up at Varen. Her expression hadn't changed. Still stoic, still carved from the icy core of a neutron moon. But her voice, was that amusement? A hint of teasing? Did Zurelians do teasing? "That was unexpected," Kellen said carefully. She tilted her head. "So was your proximity." "Sorry, you've got a dangerously loose strap," he said, then added too quickly, "On your armor." She raised an eyebrow. At least he thought she did. It was hard to tell under the brow-plated combat helm designed to withstand ion storms and passive-aggressive admirals. "My plating is calibrated for efficiency." Kellen cleared his throat. "Well, efficiency was about to fall off your left clavicle. Perhaps your touch is inefficiently calibrated." "I've been told that before," he muttered, then instantly regretted it. But instead of incinerating him with an electropulse, she made that strange sound again. Heh. A second laugh. This one longer, smoother, almost soft. "Is there something malfunctioning?" he asked, half joking, half praying. Varen blinked slowly. Number that sensation was unfamiliar, but not unpleasant. Someone gasped from the far side of the bay. Someone else giggled. The rumor engines were already powering up, faster than a slip drive at a fuel expo. "You giggled," Kellen said, voice low, wondering if it was wise to remind her. "I emitted a reflexive vocalization. Your species interprets such anomalies as giggles." "I mean, I would interpret it as something adorable," he said, "but I also don't want to die today." Varen looked at him for a long beat, then said, "I have not emitted that vocalization in 73 cycles." He blinked. "I'm honored, I think." "It is not an honor. It is statistically improbable." "Even better," Kellen murmured. "I always wanted to be an outlier." Before she could respond, a comm link chimed overhead. "Commander Shadi, report to tactical, immediate priority. Do not vaporize the maintenance crew." She stepped back. "I am required elsewhere." Kellen saluted with the torque clamp. "Try not to laugh anyone else into a singularity." As she turned to leave, she paused, just slightly, and glanced back over her shoulder. "Next time," she said, "use the red wrench." Then she was gone, and in her wake, a silence so stunned, it was practically sacred. Kellen was fairly sure he hadn't hallucinated the whole thing, though the evidence was becoming increasingly thin. No recordings, no audio logs. The bay's surveillance feed from that hour had mysteriously corrupted itself with the precision of a high-level security sweep, and the only witnesses were too terrified or too entertained to speak. Lieutenant Barra, who once fought off an acid eel with a spoon, had simply nodded and whispered, "She giggled, man," before walking straight into a wall. Now Kellen was sitting in the commandant's office, hands neatly folded, heart trying to punch its way out through his ribcage, facing a woman who looked like she hadn't slept since the last solar flare war. Her cybernetic eye clicked softly every time she blinked. It was currently aimed directly at his soul. "You touched Commander Shoddy," she said. "I tightened a strap," Kellen corrected. "I was on duty, following safety protocol. No touching involved unless we're counting glancing brush contact and, mild ticklish feedback." Her other eye narrowed. "Ticklish feedback." "Yes," he said. "Very mild, barely audible, like a mouse sneezing in a vacuum." The cyber eye made a sound like a disappointed printer. "And after this event, did you observe any physiological changes?" "Well, she didn't vaporize me, so that's already irregular." She also made a sound that, according to ancient Earth folklore, is referred to as a giggle. Might be considered a Class 3 anomaly in Zurelian social behavior. Definitely a first in my maintenance log. The Commandant leaned forward, clasped her fingers, and said in the tone people used when defusing explosives, "You may have triggered a bonded reflex in her neural lattice. A dormant one." Kellen blinked. "I thought those were removed after the Mind Scar Accord." "They were suppressed, not erased. There were rumors centuries ago of certain tactile interactions bypassing the emotional firewall, but no one's been idiotic enough to test it." "Well," Kellen said, "looks like I just tripped the intergalactic tickle switch." She stared, long and hard. Her cyber eye zoomed. "You're not being reassigned. You're being reassigned with supervision. You'll report directly to the Xenopsych division for all future contact." "That's not ominous at all," he muttered. "Also," she added, sliding a datapad across the desk, "Commander Shoddy has specifically requested you for her armor recalibration." Again. Kellen blinked. "Voluntarily?" She included a note. The pad lit up. Zurelian script scrolled across the screen like sharp icicles. Auto-translate converted it to a single sentence. "Bring the red wrench this time." He grinned. "I live to serve." Later that day, under the baleful gaze of 3 armored guards and a hovering psyche drone the size of a dinner plate, Kellen entered the recalibration bay like a man walking into a prank he himself forgot setting up. Varen was already there, standing rigid, arms folded, helmet tucked under one arm like a medieval statue contemplating whether or not to laugh again. "You returned," she said. "I brought the red wrench," he replied, holding it up like a peace offering. She looked at it, then at him. "Acceptable." He approached carefully, recalibrator in one hand, wrench in the other. The moment he touched the strap again, her shoulders tensed, then relaxed. "Still ticklish?" he asked. "There is a localized neural echo. Your contact activates it." "I should start a side business," Kellen said. "Galactic reflex rebooting. First laughs free." Varen didn't smile, but something about her posture shifted slightly. Less war statue, more confused tourist. Then she said very calmly, "I researched your Earth idioms last night. One was confusing." "Oh," Kellen said, "you humans say laughter is the best medicine." "Yeah, classic expression." She stepped closer. Her armor hissed softly with internal recalibrations. "In Zurelian physiology, laughter triggers an anomaly in our emotion suppression matrix, potentially destabilizing, possibly therapeutic." "So what you're saying is—" "I would like another dosage." Kellen blinked. "This is going to be the weirdest prescription I've ever filled." "Begin with the clavicle strap," she said, already turning. The hovering psyche drone beeped in warning. He grinned. "Proceeding with treatment." "You're within 40 centimeters," Varen said without turning her head. Kellen froze mid-adjustment. "Sorry, thought I was at a safe tickle distance." "That is not a recognized measurement in Zurelian combat manuals." "Should be," he muttered, eyes flicking to the proximity alert flashing in the corner of his toolkit interface. "We've got critical readings in your cranial torque plate. Want me to recalibrate, or should I stand back and toss a wrench at it from 30 meters like a carnival game?" There was a pause. "Recalibrate," she said, after what could only be described as a long internal debate involving honor, humiliation, and possibly interstellar litigation. He stepped in. Again. As he aligned the microservos, he noticed a flicker, brief but real, on his diagnostic scanner. Neural activity. Not hers, his, or rather, both of theirs, overlapping. Varen? Yes. I think your armor just pinged my neuro ID. Explain. I didn't authorize the link, but it's synced to my cortical band. That shouldn't be possible unless... He trailed off. Unless there is active resonance, she finished. He looked up. Are we... resonating? We are not singing, she said flatly. No. Neural resonance. Cross-species frequency alignment. Happens sometimes in paired units, but only in certain conditions. I do not recall consenting to pairing. Neither did I, Kellen said, but the armor thinks we're married now. Varen stared at him. To the tech. Not in like a space wedding kind of way. More staring. I mean, unless Zerelians really rush relationships, which, look, let's just not tell anyone. Too late, said a small voice. They both turned. The hovering Psyche drone blinked its optical node and beeped again. Observation logged, uploading emotional telemetry to Xenopsych archives. Varen sighed, or made a sound that was probably the Zerelian equivalent, like a volcanic vent considering its life choices. Kellen waved a hand in front of the drone. Hey, what if we pretended this never happened? I'll give you 10 credits and a full canister of empathic lubricant. The drone beeped twice. Bribery logged. Also, I am not a coffee machine. You have the same voice, Kellen muttered. I was manufactured by Cafe Core Vending Systems. It is a known issue. Varen reached up suddenly and tapped the drone's interface port. It froze, hovered uncertainly, then powered down mid-upload, drifting to the floor like a deflated balloon. Did you just... I invoked Zerelian Override Protocol 93, she said. Emergency reputation containment. Is there a Protocol 94? Only if mating occurs. You should hope we never need it. Kellen made a sound somewhere between a cough and a whimper. Varen adjusted her gauntlet. You are inefficient at suppressing physiological reactions. I'm not a warrior bred in a cryogenic lab. I'm an engineer with allergies. She glanced at his face. Your pupils dilated when I approached. It's a lighting issue, he lied. My armor registers elevated dermal temperature in your hands. Static buildup. You are blushing. I'm allergic to combat helmets. Varen said nothing. Then she stepped closer again. 40 centimeters became 39, 38, 37. Kellen's scanner began to whine. You're doing that proximity thing again, he said weakly. You called it resonance. I am testing the consistency. Well, my consistency's about to melt through the floor. Then unexpectedly, she reached out and poked his side. He yelped. That tickled, she said. That's different. I have ribs. I possess an endoskeleton as well. Yours comes with laser cannons. She didn't laugh, but her eyes shimmered in a way that made the air between them seem thinner. Charged. A moment stretched, then the floor beneath them shuddered. The ship's emergency klaxon blared, lights flashing red and blue like an overexcited disco. Varen snapped upright. Unscheduled spatial anomaly. Origin, Deck 9. Kellen groaned. Every time I bond with someone, the universe tries to kill us. Your sample size is statistically insufficient. He grabbed his kit. Let's go before the next drone gets chatty. She was already halfway to the lift. Stay within 35 centimeters. For safety. For safety, Kellen echoed, and absolutely did not blush again. The lift groaned as it descended, a mechanical sigh from a ship that had seen too many battles and not enough therapy. Kellen adjusted his toolkit, which had started humming again, either due to a sensor feedback loop or pure nervous energy. Varen stood beside him, silent, unmoving, except for the faint pulse of her shoulder plate's energy nodes. They stood 35 centimeters apart. Exactly. Kellen was fairly certain she'd calibrated the spacing using internal targeting software. So, he said, trying not to tap his foot, this Deck 9 anomaly. What are we thinking? Dimensional fracture? Sentient gravity well? Or is it just another cursed vending unit trying to evolve into a life form again? Vending units are not classified as life forms. Tell that to the one on Deck 3 that tried to mate with my replicator. She didn't blink. Did it succeed? Kellen sighed. It printed 12 banana sandwiches, and a baby blanket before exploding, so define success. The lift chimed and opened with a hiss. Deck 9 was dark. Not emergency dark. Wrong dark. As if light itself was having an existential crisis. The corridor twisted slightly left and slightly right at the same time. Visual distortion detected, Varen said, activating her helmet's optical shield. Kellen slapped his own goggles on. I once saw this in a training sim. The instructor said, if this happens in real life, run, preferably screaming. Varen stepped forward. Remain within 35 centimeters. You say that like it's comforting, he muttered, following her into the anomaly. Halfway down the corridor, reality hiccuped. A potted plant floated by, upside down, in slow motion. Was that hydrangea? Kellen asked. Varen ignored the plant. Localized field inversion, chronospatial interference likely. Meaning? Meaning time is folding. Space is reacting. We are inside an unstable ripple. Fantastic, Kellen said. Just once, I'd like to deal with a malfunctioning door instead of the boundaries of existence. They rounded the corner. The botany lab was breathing. Vines pulsed along the walls like veins. Leaves shimmered in impossible colors. A faint sound, laughter, echoed in the air. Definitely not standard Terran flora, Kellen whispered. Correction, Varen said. These are Terran, altered by psychotropic resonance. You mean they're high? Technically, yes. The vines stirred. One tendril reached toward Kellen. Back, Varen commanded. Too late. The vine wrapped around his wrist gently, like an affectionate octopus. Oh, great, he said, swaying slightly. I feel warm, and I suddenly want to apologize to my high school physics teacher. Pheromonal suggestion detected. Stay alert. Kellen giggled. You said alert like it was a flavor. I like that. Alert, now in citrus mango. Varen stepped forward, slicing through the air with a clean arc of her plasma blade. The vine recoiled but didn't attack. Instead, it quivered, then released a puff of pink mist. Kellen swayed more. That one smells like Grandma's kitchen, but in reverse? Varen grabbed his arm and dragged him back. You are compromised. I'm not compromised, I'm just emotionally lubricated. She stopped and looked at him. Your cortical activity is increasing. Emotion centers spiking. Is that bad? For a Zurelian, yes. You're not spiking. I am trained. Want me to train you? He grinned. First lesson, laughter is a natural release, like sneezing or taxes. She didn't respond immediately. Then, your logic is unstable, but not incorrect. They reached the lab's core. At the center floated a glowing orb, pulsing in sync with the vines. It shimmered, then shifted into a vaguely humanoid form. Hi, it said cheerfully. I feed on emotion. You two are delicious. Kellen blinked. I knew it. Sentient fungus. Worst kind. Varen raised her blade. State your origin. Vec Thral, it said, beaming. We thrive on the rarest feelings. And you, Commander, are a goldmine. Varen stiffened. I do not. You do now, it said, voice curling like smoke. And your friend is the matchstick. Kellen, still swaying slightly, held up a finger. Quick question. Is this going to end in a multiverse implosion, or can we negotiate with hugs? The entity rippled. You'll find out soon enough. Varen didn't flinch. Kellen belched slightly. I think the hydrangea drugged me. Varen lowered her weapon. We must retreat. This anomaly is not organic. It's targeting our connection. Define connection, Kellen said. Shut up and run. I like when you're direct, he said, right before they bolted into the twitching, vine-laced corridor. The medbay was not equipped for emotional anomalies. Kellen sat on the diagnostic table, swinging his legs like a child, pretending not to have just inhaled empathic flower dust and seen a sentient mood orb call him delicious. Across from him, Varen stood perfectly still as 4 analysis drones buzzed around her. One paused every so often to beep in confusion and back away cautiously, like a Roomba encountering a haunted chair. I think the vines liked me, Kellen offered. They were gentle, intimate, and one of them smelled like cinnamon toast. Your readings remain erratic, the med officer said, scrolling through his datapad. You're emotionally overstimulated. Kellen nodded. Yeah, that's what love does, Doc. But in this case, I think it was more alien plant therapy. Varen didn't move. Your reaction was disproportionate. Are you judging me because I got flirty with a wall fern? I am judging the effectiveness of your neural insulation. It's working great. My neurons are just having a dance party right now. The doctor sighed. Commander Shadi's readings, on the other hand, are unusual. Emotional spikes, cortical shifts, and one section of your neural net has begun lighting up in comedic recognition. Varen glanced at the monitor. Explain. Kellen raised a hand. That's probably me. I've been saying a lot of weird stuff around you. It's possible I'm, what's the scientific term? Rubbing off. Do not say that again. The med officer cleared his throat. There's also residual trace of a foreign presence. Something inside the resonance field between you. Like a digital parasite. Kellen blinked. Are you saying we've been emotionally hacked? Yes, the doctor replied, by something intelligent and very, very curious. Varen stepped forward. Can it be isolated? Not easily. It's not biological. It's not even truly digital. It exists between signals, a pattern, feeding on your connection. Kellen groaned. Of course, we flirt once and now we've got a psychic stalker in our Wi-Fi. Varen glanced at him. You are not required to flirt. It is inefficient in combat zones. Oh, I flirt under pressure. It's a coping mechanism. Some people meditate. I wink and say inappropriate things to battle-hardened alien commanders. The doctor raised an eyebrow. If this entity keeps feeding, it may destabilize more than just you two. The ship's systems are tied to crew emotional balance, standard harmony protocols. If this thing exploits that bond, Kellen held up a hand. Wait. The ship runs on emotional stability? Correct. Whose idea was that? Yours, the doctor said, not looking up. Oh, right. Forgot I was on that committee. Varen's eyes narrowed. Then you may also know how to stop it. I might, Kellen said, tapping his temple. If I can track the emotional pings, trace the interference patterns, and maybe reroute it through something unappealing. Such as? My old diary entries. The med officer frowned. That might work. Emotionally neutral data could starve it. Kellen stood, pulling out a small palm drive. I've got middle school poems that could shut down an entire black hole. Varen followed him as they left the medbay. We must act quickly. Agreed. I just need to wire your armor into the emotional filter grid and redirect your, let's call them giggle metrics through a dampener loop. She paused. I no longer giggle. You giggled. Twice. You're on the scoreboard. I was unshielded. You were adorable. She didn't reply, but her plasma gauntlet softly hissed, like a kettle deciding whether to boil or explode. As they entered the tech bay, the lights flickered. The interference was spreading. A console blinked with a message neither of them typed. We like this. Keep connecting. Feed us more. Kellen frowned. Okay, that's definitely creepy. That's ghost in the Bluetooth creepy. Varen stepped forward. Then we must starve it. Kellen plugged in the drive. Time to let the galaxy read what I thought about space dragons and first crushes when I was 12. Your humiliation may save us all. I aim to please, he said, then whispered, please don't actually read any of it. She said nothing, but he swore her shoulders twitched, just a little. The core systems room was humming, though not in the normal, well-behaved hum of a starship's fusion spine. This was a needy hum, a clingy hum, the kind of hum that said, Hi, I've accessed your most embarrassing emotions and would like to live in them forever. Kellen crouched beside the primary sync node, a mess of cables, blinking lights, and one particularly judgmental diagnostic screen. Varen stood nearby, her armor plates gleaming faintly with feedback as the neural dampener loop he jerry-rigged around her left pauldron pulsed once every 3 seconds like a heartbeat with commitment issues. Okay, he muttered, twisting the drive into the main input slot. These files should be emotionally neutral enough to fry the parasite's attention span. He hesitated. I mean, they nearly fried my sense of self. Varen regarded him. What is the subject matter? He cleared his throat. Mostly, speculative love letters to a girl I never talked to in primary school, and some extremely inaccurate diagrams of starship battles. There's also a poem about nachos. She blinked once. Explain the structure of a nacho poem. It's emotional, layered, cheesy, like my adolescence. The diagnostic screen flared to life. Emotional resonance levels spiked, then dipped, then spiked again. The message returned. No, we like this too. Varen frowned. They are adapting. Kellen groaned. They're feeding on shame. That's not fair. No one survives 8th grade intact. He yanked the drive and shoved in a second. Plan B, my entire archive of rejected stand-up routines. These jokes are so flat they legally qualify as interdimensional silence. The hum changed. The lights above flickered. Then a screech, not audible, but felt, echoed through the room. A voice inside both of them whispered, "Stop, stop, too cringeworthy." Kellen grinned. That's the stuff. Varen watched the display stabilize. Emotional interference receding, neural tether relaxing. See? He said, tapping the console. Self-loathing, the unexpected hero. But then the lights flared again, harder this time. A shimmer appeared in the center of the room, like a heat wave with opinions. The shimmer took shape, not fully formed, not quite solid, but enough to give them a silhouette, a figure, humanoid, genderless, made of color and longing, and the unmistakable aura of someone who had read too much poetry and decided to become it. We are the Vecthral, the shimmer said. You've made us curious. Varen raised her gauntlet. We have nothing more to offer. You do, it said, drifting closer. You feel. One of you was never supposed to. The other has always been loud. Kellen waved. Hey, thanks. That's my entire brand. You destabilize, it said. Listen, I destabilized long before I got here. Emotionally, financially, once during a 0G burrito incident. We want to learn, the Vectral said, pulsing. We want to laugh. Kellen blinked. Wait, are you saying you want a comedy routine? We seek understanding, amusement, that which breaks logic. Varen lowered her weapon slightly. You wish to be entertained? The entity pulsed. Yes, or we continue feeding until you fracture. Kellen sighed. You ever perform stand-up under threat of existential collapse? Only once, Varen said. He stepped forward, cleared his throat. Knock, knock. The Vectral paused. Explain. It's a format, he said. You say, who's there? There was a long silence. Then obediently, who's there? Interrupting plasma goat. Interrupting Bazan! Kellen shouted, waving his hands like a goat caught in a power surge. There was silence, then a strange noise. A chime, a ripple. The Vectral giggled. Varen's brow twitched. That noise? They're copying us, Kellen whispered, imitating the connection. The entity shivered. More. I'm not doing a full set, he said. I've got dignity. Some. Then teach us. Varen looked at him. We must comply, or risk recurrence. He nodded. All right, but I get royalties. They stood together. Kellen with his awkward charm, Varen with her unintentional timing, and the Vectral, the universe's most dangerous open mic audience, waiting in shimmering silence. It was going to be the weirdest comedy show in galactic history. Kellen stood in front of the Vectral like a man about to perform at the galaxy's least forgiving comedy club, where heckling could involve gravitational collapse and a bad punchline might literally open a wormhole. He tapped the mic. There was no mic. He tapped it anyway, out of instinct and fear. Mostly fear. So, he began, voice echoing weirdly off the energy fields. Two quantum particles walk into a bar. One says, I'm here because of causality. The other says, I'm here because you are. The Vecthrall shimmered, then buzzed, then made a sound like someone trying to learn how to chuckle using only magnetic pulses. Kellen glanced at Varen. That count as a laugh? Resonance increasing, she said, watching her gauntlet sensors. They are processing the illogic. With interest. Cool, cool, he said, adjusting the feed behind him. Let's keep it going. He pulled out a small hollow projector and flicked it on. A 3D chart appeared, labeled Kellen's emotional development versus his hairline. As you can see, he said, pointing to a downward trend, they are inversely proportional. The Vecthrall let out what might have been a snort. A static pulse rippled through the room and disarmed a nearby gravity anchor. A storage crate floated off the ground like it, too, was emotionally invested in the bit. Kellen grinned. Didn't know I'd be doing anti-grav improv, but hey, let's float with it. Varen's voice cut through the moment. They are stabilizing, but not satisfied. They seek deeper amusement. Kellen nodded, sweating. Time for the big stuff. He stepped forward, hands raised like a conjurer. I'm going to teach you something sacred, something ancient, something that has defeated more warriors than plasma blades and paperwork combined. The Vecthrall leaned closer. Dad jokes. Varen made a sound that could only be described as a tactical groan. Kellen grinned. Why did the ion engine break up with the fuel injector? No answer. It said, you just don't spark joy anymore. The Vecthrall rippled. The lights flickered. One of them made a sound so bizarrely delighted that 2 maintenance panels retracted on their own, as if even the ship's architecture wanted to hear more. Kellen leaned into the chaos. I once dated a chronologist. She said I was wasting her time. I said, that's the past talking. Another burst of delighted feedback surged through the room. Varen frowned. Are you sure this is not a form of weaponry? Kellen shrugged. Honestly, yes, but only mildly lethal. The Vecthrall shimmered. You manipulate meaning, rearrangement of logic, disruptive harmony. We crave this. That's called comedy, he said. And if you like that, wait till you meet sarcasm. Varen tilted her head. Introduce them to irony. Ah, Kellen said. Now you're talking advanced levels. He turned back to the shimmering entities. Irony is when your ship's self-diagnostics say everything is fine, right before it catches fire. The Vecthrall pulsed once, then burst into fractured light, splitting briefly into dozens of glowing forms, each emitting a strange, melodic static that filled the room like a laugh with its own language. They're multiplying, Kellen whispered. They are replicating joy, Varen said, scanning the readings. Emotion-based propagation. The lead shimmer reformed. We must learn more. Archive it, integrate. Humor is sustenance. And shield. Kellen blinked. You mean laughter is literally your best medicine? Yes, teach us, or return to the vine hallucinations. He turned to Varen. I guess I'm teaching an emotion-eating space cloud how to be funny. You are not unqualified, she said. You destabilize without effort. Thank you, he said. I think. The ship pulsed again, this time with a harmony in the power readings. No anomalies, no spikes, just calm and a faint echo of laughter that didn't originate from any crew member. Kellen took a breath. Well, lesson 2 begins after lunch. We do not eat, said the Vecthrall. Kellen sighed. That was the joke. They shimmered again. He grinned. I think I'm growing on them. Varen crossed her arms. Like a fungus. Hey, he said, nudging her lightly. You made a joke. I did not. You totally did. I am denying all charges. And somewhere in the power grid, something giggled. Kellen sat cross-legged on the floor of the debrief chamber, sipping what was probably tea but tasted suspiciously like recycled optimism. The lights had finally stopped flickering. The walls were no longer humming in existential disharmony. No floating vines, no shimmering entities whispering punchlines into the ductwork. Across from him, Varen stood with her arms behind her back, posture military grade, but her expression far less frostbitten than usual. The Vecthrall have withdrawn, she reported. They left a parting transmission composed entirely of knock-knock jokes and low-frequency static. Cultural evolution, Kellen said, raising his mug, from emotional leeches to cosmic class clowns. I call that progress. They also requested weekly transmissions of what they called fresh material. So I'm writing newsletters now. Technically, you are now their emotional consultant. Kellen sighed. I wanted a promotion. I didn't expect to become the galaxy's first licensed stand-up ambassador to psychic vapor entities. Varen tilted her head. You are uniquely suited. Because I'm unstable? Because you find logic optional, he pointed at her. You smiled when you said that. It was unintentional. He smirked. Sure. Just like your shoulder strap malfunctioning was unintentional. Remember that? First giggle, historic event. Pretty sure they'll put it in the logs with dramatic music in slow motion. She shifted slightly. You destabilized a species, Kellen. That is not easily forgotten. I also destabilized your emotion suppression lattice, he said. That's 2 for 2. You have a pattern. Yeah, he said. Showing up to fix armor and accidentally creating interstellar incidents. There was a pause. Then Varen walked to the tool bench, picked up the red wrench and held it out. I require recalibration. He blinked. You're asking for a tune-up? I am requesting interaction. Is this a roundabout way of saying you want to laugh again? Her gaze didn't waver. I wish to continue testing emotional expression. Kellen took the wrench slowly. No plants, no hallucinations, no parasites? No parasites. He stepped forward, gently reaching for her shoulder plate. The strap was perfectly secure. Didn't need adjusting at all. She didn't stop him. As he leaned in, he whispered, You know this is where the tickle happens. I am aware. He touched the plate. She flinched, just slightly. Kellen grinned. That's 3. I am developing immunity, she said, though her voice betrayed something softer. Developing immunity is just slow-motion bonding. They stood in silence for a moment, 35 centimeters apart by long-standing tradition. Then the Walcom crackled. This is Commander Reese. To the crew, emotional harmony levels have stabilized. No further incidents reported. Also, the ship's AI is now running its own stand-up routine in the mess hall. Attendance is voluntary. Kellen groaned. I've created a monster. You created connection, Varen corrected. Among many. He lowered the wrench. You're not just talking about the Vec Thrall, are you? I am referring to the maintenance technician who disrupted my programming and made me consider the value of cinnamon-scented hallucinations. He stared. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. I am not known for compliments. Well, Kellen said, I accept. And in return, I promise not to write another poem about nachos unless it's absolutely necessary for interstellar peace. Your restraint is appreciated. They turned together toward the corridor. Outside, the crew had resumed life. Repairs, laughter. No longer wary of the dark or the strange or the giggles echoing down the halls. As they walked side by side, Kellen reached out. Not to fix anything, not to trigger anything, just to brush his fingers against her gauntlet. She didn't pull away. He smiled. So, armor calibration next Tuesday? I will schedule a malfunction. And somewhere deep in the ship's systems, the Vec Thrall quietly giggled along.